South Carolina 44, Texas A&M 20. We wanted to be here bad, man. A couple of big games yesterday. We were at the big noon game. We were up at State College for Ohio State, Penn State. Man, we wanted to be at this game. 3.5 Chalai on the 1 to 5 scale. If you're a South Carolina fan, this was a 5 Chalai Classic. This may be the best game under Shane Beamer. I'd like to see that list. Off the top of my head, I don't remember a more emphatic evening, a better spectacle for just South Carolina Gamecock football than this one. I felt this one all week. I ran my mouth earlier in the week about Mike Elko and where that program was going, but if you watched or listened to the show, you know I said I feel this way about A&M. Even if they go and lose by 20 or 30 to South Carolina, it's because I thought they were going to lose. I predicted them to lose. I predicted South Carolina to win this game. They made the game exactly what it should be. See, up the road a little ways, or down the road a little ways, in Clemson, they had a bye week, and they came out of their bye and looked horrific. South Carolina came out of their bye, and it turns out they had spent 2 weeks setting 15 different traps in the woods for A&M, and they walked into every one of them. This was a really good game. It was a really good game on multiple fronts for Texas A&M to experience. And I don't say that mistakenly. I think they needed this. This will serve them in the long run. I don't just mean this year. Like, this will serve them in the long run. This is life in the SEC. That's what it's about. I'm not saying they're new to the conference. Texas is new to the conference. Oklahoma's new to the conference. I just mean for what they're trying to rebuild there, this will serve them well. But we talk about the winners first on this show. I've got padlock stats all over the place. You remember last week when we were predicting this game, I said that there was a little bit of disagreement amongst South Carolina fans. Most of you don't peruse the South Carolina message boards, but I do, so you don't have to. And there was a lot of talk last week. I participated anonymously via Burner. I participated in the talk about what South Carolina's offense would look like out of the bye week, because there was a school of thought that they were just going to stick with the same old, and hope that they could ride special teams and that pass rush and Rocket Sanders. They just hoped they could ride that to some close wins. I was of the opinion, didn't know exactly how, but I was of the opinion that we were going to see a little more than just modus operandi thus far this year. Well, the results are in. Feel like Maury Povich here. And it turns out, South Carolina, you are the father. South Carolina, 530 yards total offense. What, in October? No, man, just in this game. They had 6.7 yards per carry. This is against A&M. A&M's got a really salty defense. 9 plays of 20-plus yards. South Carolina, imagine this, 18.8 yards per completion. So as it turns out, South Carolina did come out of the bye, shot out of a cannon offensively. They owned the second half. Now, in the first half, Le'Veon Moss went down, the tailback for A&M, and that had something to do with this. But South Carolina owned the second half, 24-0 run. And here was let's just go ahead and pop the paper, the other padlock stat here, which I wanted to know. I wanted to know how much consistent pressure were they going to get on A&M. Well, the answer was all night. Marcel Reed had 36 dropbacks in this game. South Carolina either hurried him or sacked him on 21 of his 36 dropbacks. That, to go along with the most underrated home field atmosphere in college football, was not to be trifled with last night. And then Justin King and the folks over there in the creative department, they had the audacity to actually take footage of the field storming and lay it over real Sarah McLachlan music. Do you realize that, Colin and Jesse? They went and licensed the real thing. We're too scared to do that around here. Like, later in the show, I'll have the Sarah McLachlan special, but we just use royalty-free piano music. Look at this. Some say that girl right there still has her leg caught in the shrubbery, but it was for a good cause. What a night. What a night. Look at the crowd. There were some money shots from the A&M or from the ABC crew. There was one where guy just disappears down the sideline, and then they focus in on Shane Beamer. It looked like a movie scene. Honestly, it looked like the game had been scripted from the way they shot it. You play big boy football, you're going to have your games broadcast on major networks, and it's worth a lot of money to be on those major networks. I don't know to what extent. like to what numerical value this game was worth for South Carolina. I just know it was a lot. So last week I chose my words very wisely, as some of you pointed out in the moment, when I talked about Texas A&M. I talked about how sky high I thought the program was going to fly under Mike Elko. I talked about how Mike Elko unequivocally was the right hire. I was buying all the Elko stock I could, but you never heard me say any of that without saying ... and I'll maintain this even if they lose by double digits Saturday against South Carolina, because I expected them to lose. Really bad spot for them. So here we are. They've lost emphatically to South Carolina. I maintain everything that I said, everything I think about this year's team. It's a flawed team, just like all the rest of them are. Probably a little more vulnerable. They're not as good as some of the top 5, top 10 teams. But long term, this program's going to be in it every year. Got very little doubt about that. Marcel Reed was what he was last night. This offense, after losing Le'Veon Moss, had a really hard time. South Carolina had 9 plays of 20-plus yards, and A&M had 4. One team did a much better job of generating explosives and limiting explosives than the other one did. What I was surprised by was that South Carolina ran it like they did on A&M. Now, that surprised me a little bit, but this A&M second-half drive chart, punt, turnover on downs, 3 and out, interception, 3 and out, punt, fumble, end of game. It is a stark contrast to the week prior when they trailed LSU by double digits into the third quarter, and then they just completely explode. Totally inverted game here. This was, I think, Jesse, wasn't this 2020 at the half? I believe it was, or thereabouts. And then, boy, it was all South Carolina in the second half. South Carolina is a very dangerous team. Let me explain to you what we're looking at here. You're looking at a team whose only convincing loss was to Ole Miss. Turnovers got them out of shape early, but they lost to LSU after Lenora Sellers goes down in the game, and officiating is sus af in the second half. They probably beat LSU more times than not in that game. And then they've lost by 2 on the road to Alabama. Those are their losses. They lost by a combined 5 to LSU and Alabama, and Ole Miss is their other loss. This is probably a top 15 team, not in the AP. God forbid we ranked South Carolina in the AP. More on that later in the show. By the way, subscribe if you're already here and haven't. I got a lot of you watching live right now. A lot of you just watching this individual video. Lenora Sellers played at a different level than I've seen him play last night. I don't even care what his numbers were, although Colin has put them on the screen, so I now see them. These are not numbers that are going to send him to New York City or anything like that. But if you watched him, you know what I mean. You ever watched guys who are coming into their own and say, uh-oh? If you have them on your schedule, or if you have to compete against them, or they're one of your rivals, you just say, uh-oh. It was an uh-oh game. To me, as I'm watching South Carolina, it was an uh-oh game. I'm watching Lenora Sellers, and it's almost like someone is turning the light switch on in real time. Guy's just a different caliber athlete. They were excited about him the day he got on campus 2 years ago, I guess it was now, and the results, like the returns we got out of Columbia were, you wait till you see this kid. It's not going to be this year, but you wait down the road until you see this kid. Well, we're down the road now, and you're still just seeing them scratch the surface of what he can be. And because they've got him, and he is a total dynamic force at the quarterback position, they got Rocket Sanders in the backfield as well. They've got a great pass rush. This team is so dangerous right now. And it's a shame they didn't clip LSU or Alabama, because we'd legitimately be talking about South Carolina in the playoff race. That is not a conversation many people had them in the preseason, including their own fan base. Hats off to Shane Beamer, the entire coaching staff, because they kept their nose down. I really felt like when they came out of that Bama game, and they barely lost it, then they went and smoked Oklahoma, and Shane Beamer afterwards said, after the Bama game, we kind of just looked around and said, enough is enough. Like, we've been close, forget that, enough is enough, which were no more than words at the time. Anyone can talk. It was obvious he was saying something in the affirmative. He was just validating what he was feeling from his locker room. And they've embodied that since then. So here's what's about to happen. They're going to come here. They're going to come to Nashville Saturday. They're going to play Vandy. Then they got Missouri. Then they got Wofford. Then they go to Clemson. There are a lot of worlds where they finish 4-0. There are several where they finish 3-1. It's not out of the realm of possibility. They go 2-2 and revert right back to what South Carolina has been. But the ball they're playing right now is plenty good enough to where they could finish as a 9-3 team. And I'm not gonna put a hex on them or anything like that. I'm not gonna speak the words. But if you're 9-3 and a bunch of chaos happens in November, I'm not saying, I'm just saying. And that's South Carolina we're talking about. South Carolina. It's not even Cocktober anymore. Whomst knew?